Give us free. Give us free.
Your Honor, please instruct the defendant that he cannot disrupt these proceedings with such outbursts.
Give us free.
If we are to have any semblance of order in this country,
Give us free.
Peace, unity, and welcome my conscious and unconscious family and friends. This is the all-new Black Village Community Podcast, and I am truly your host of the show, JC, aka Afro Black, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut, without any fear, as I use my mic as a spear to chucker you with liberated truth. I am your host and your native soldier in the struggle. My purpose and mission for this show is first to enlighten, inform, and engage. And I want to engage with all who claim to know the truth. All truth seekers and my native family, I welcome you. This show is dedicated to all our indigenous native ancestors and to all those who've carried the mantle of truth, and to every person with the ability to throw off the chains of comfortable habit and unwarranted assumption and move in a new, liberated direction that is guided by truth and observational evidence, no matter where that direction may lead you. My main objective and purpose here is freedom, mind, soul, and spirit. That being said, welcome to the Black Village Community Podcast, and much love from our great universal goddess and mother of all, living here and above.
DC in the house.
The Matrix. Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage. A prison. For your mind, for your mind, for your mind.
Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people. Aboriginal means the original inhabitant of a land from the earliest times. The ancient mound builders that built and designed the pyramids right here, not just by the Nile, contrary to popular belief in denial. Pyramids and huge hieroglyphics and pictographs on the ground are all mounds found around the Americas, north, central, and south, even Venus and Mars. That is documented fact that emanates from my mouth. So who exactly were these Aboriginals here, whose ancient evidence of residency is hesitantly mentioned in this hemisphere? Were they the stereotypical Native American so-called Red Indians? Well then, let's be clear, ask any of their tribes if they're sincere. They'll tell ya, those mounds predate their origins. Our past was erased and replaced with lies. Our achievements and identity plagiarized. We got amnesia of who we are, but we go way back further than the seats in your car. Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people.
JC, aka Afro Black, and I am here with you for another delicious Black Sunday to drop nothing but the raw and uncut. You heard me here on the Black Village Community Podcast, and I am here for another delicious Black Sunday to share some conscious truth with my conscious family and the conscious community and those who are looking for truth. You feel me? And if you're not even looking for truth, if you just want to join the show because, you think you got something that you can maybe raise my consciousness to, or maybe something that you think you can bring to the table, I don't know, maybe in the form of a challenge, I don't know, a debate, conscious debate, intelligent debate. I don't debate with children. I don't debate with idiots. If I'm going to debate with somebody, it got to be a conscious, intelligent, mature, adult conversation and discussion. You feel me? That's what JC, aka Afro Black. That's how I indulge in debate. You feel me? The mature debate. So on that level, you can always join here. Join the show. It doesn't cost you a dime, just for your conscious time. You can chime in at 855-445-9340. You can also chime in at 857-232-0155. And don't forget the conference key to get through the conference, though. Let's sit at the conscious table of truth with me. You feel me? Which is 947595. And so today's podcast subject matter is a very important subject matter. As all my conscious, discussions are. But today's podcast topic is titled, and let me turn down matter of fact, let me change my theme to something a little bit more back to vibrate too, so we can vibrate. How about this right here? There we go. Some J-Bach. That is J-Bach, which you heard in the intro in the beginning of my show. I got a little bit of Morpheus there, and I had to just bring in, J-Bach. Whenever I talk about our Aboriginal Indigenous ancestors, I'm going to play J-Bach because I love Brother J-Bach. So I got J-Bach sitting here in the backdrop for me, and put that brother right there. So, today's podcast topic, subject matter, is titled Amerindian Enslavement and the Plantation Negro. Again, Amerindian meaning Amerindian, Amerindian Enslavement and the Plantation Negro. Subtitle, A Lost People and Their Stolen Identity. A Lost People and Their Stolen Identity. So today's podcast topic is going to be me vibrating on bringing together the plantation and our native enslaved indigenous ancestors. And so, we're taught in this country, the reverse and the backwards of history. White devil always trying to reverse things or mix things up, you feel me? And we're taught that enslavement in North America started, at least the plantation started with the African. That the first person on the plantation to cultivate crops for European profit started with Africans, and that is a lie. I'm telling my conscious community that is a lie from the mouth of the white devil. Okay, so let me, I got evidence to this. I got proof of this. I got information I'm going to share with my community, with the conscious community on this level. I'm just talking at the side of my neck. But let me also say, before I go any further, no disrespect to my African conscious brothers. No disrespect to my to those who are African conscious. I love my African brothers and sisters. I love my African conscious-minded brothers and sisters. And yes, I say that in a twofold situation. African brothers, all my African brothers and sisters from across the Pacific, in the continent of Africa, much love to you guys. I love you. You my people, you feel me? No disrespect. But my African conscious-minded people, no disrespect to you either. But at the same time, you're wrong. You're perpetuating the lie to our people. My brothers and sisters who are here, like my brother who I got much love and respect for, Sarah Seti. My brothers and sisters who are here, like my brother Sa Netter. Much love and respect to brother Sa Netter. That brother, he's a soldier. Even Sarah said it. He's a soldier. And they are giving good information on African culture. They're giving good information on African and Egyptian history. But to say that black people from North America, that our main descendants, our primary descendants, our primary ancestors, our ancestors are Egyptians and Africans, that's not true. To say that we came over here by the millions into North America as slaves and were put on plantations to cultivate plantations for profit for Europeans, that the people who were placed on the plant in the beginning stages, in the beginnings of the cultivation of the tobacco industry, in the beginning stages of the cultivation of the sugar industry, in the beginning stages of the cultivation of the cotton industry, that it was done by Africa, that's a lie. That's a lie. From the white devil that's been handed down to our people. And it's a part of that mental assimilation to keep us not knowing who we are. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. The black man, the black woman in America, and I'm speaking specifically to North America. I'm not talking about South America. I'm not talking about the American islands, like, that was conquered by the Spanish and the Europeans, like the Caribbean islands, the Virgin Islands, the Dominican Republic, the Puerto Rican islands, the Cuba. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about North America, right here. The black man and the black woman of North America who have slave ancestry going all the way to the plantation, we are the children. We are the descendants of the original indigenous aboriginal people of North America, which were the original Native American peoples of North America. That's who we are. They are our ancestors. They are our people. Their culture, their heritage, their traditions and customs belong to us. And we've been hoodwinked. We've been lied to. We've been manipulated. We've been brainwashed. And it's been done in a bubble where media, education, politics, all that has everything to do with the mind assimilation, which our people are in to this day, where we will grab on to African culture and history and ignore our Native American heritage, as if African history is our main history. And that is totally untrue. While the white man covers himself up and put on Native American makeup and put on a Native American costume, and they'll go jump out there to a powwow and dance around the fire and celebrate corn festivities and other Native American festivities as if it's his original heritage, and that's a lie. A reversal of identity, a reversal of culture and heritage has been done to us people. And we've been told by the system who we are, and that's a lie. So, to get down to the nitty-gritty of things, you feel me, as I always do. And you know what? I'm not here. I notice I see my brother here sitting in the conference room. Brother Currington, I see you, my brother. I appreciate you joining me here on the Black Village Community Podcast. So you want to continue to listen, and you got something you want to reverberate on before I start this with some audio casts I want to play?
Not at this time. Okay, pay attention.
Okay, my brother. Okay. So I'm going to mute you for a minute now, but I will unmute you in just a minute. But I want to play an audio cast that I found very interesting. Okay, so this knowledge, this historical truth about our true Native American identity is not something that's coming out the side of my neck. It's very, I call it an awakening. I call it an awakening, that our people are awakening. See, we've had this lie of African identity perpetrated to us from the very time that the white man decided to make the Native Americans white and give them a portion of land. And a good book I would encourage my conscious people to go download through a PDF file is called Making Indians White by Gregory Blavinsky. Very good information with dates, names, and people of how and when the white man decided to make the light-skinned Native American and deem him white. And this explains the white devil, what's his name? Plecker. Mr. Plecker. During the early 19th century, who was doing changes. He was the head of the Vital Statistics Department, and how he was changing names and changing documents and putting Negro, black, and colored whenever he saw some documentation that said this was a Native American and that he came or she was born of this tribe, and he was changing the documentation. But this explains that, because prior to Mr. Plecker coming on the scene, during the 16th and late 17th century, when the white man got tired of having wars, because even though many natives, many of our indigenous natives warriors were dying and if they weren't dying, they were immediately put into slavery on the plantation or some plantation in the West Indies or the Caribbean islands, the sugar, as they called them, the sugar islands, where they mostly cultivated sugar and bananas, the Cuban islands, the Caribbean islands, and the West Indies. But we got those who remember, whenever you read the white man's documentation of history, always keep an open mind to his manipulation, because the white man is really embarrassed, ashamed, as well as the mental agenda of wanting to not tell as much as possible, but at the same time, even those who are truthful, they want to tell the truth, but they're so afraid of telling too much truth. So you notice that you hear them whenever they talk about Native American enslavement in history, and I'm telling you some of the things that I've read. They always say, well, after a war, they shipped off 30,000 or 50,000 Native Americans to the West Indies. But see, what they don't tell you is that when they would have a war, prime example, like the Yamasee War of 1715, when they would have a war, they would take the prisoners of war. Some they would ship off. Many others they would stick on the plantation. And then they would immediately go to the villages of our native ancestors. They would go immediately after the war, after the white man won a war against a specific tribe. They would immediately go raid and pillage their villages, and take the women, take the children, and immediately put them on plantations to work. Now, what we've been given, and look, I'm getting too deep. I'm starting to go into the history of this thing. I want to play something that I think is very important, an audio cast, okay? Now, this audio cast, this brother who's speaking, he's the former rapper of the group Brand Nubian, Lord Jamar. Okay? That's this brother so I'm letting you know who's talking on the audio cast. Brother Lord, his rap name is Lord Jamar. Okay? And he's talking about the game that's been played on black folks. Okay? He's talking about the game that's been played on us. The mental assimilation that our people are under right now, that they don't even know that they're under. The mental enslavement, the Willie Lynch syndrome, basically, that's been done to us. But he's coming from another perspective that I don't think a lot of black people are aware of. And so I want to play this audio cast by an interview with brother, former rapper from the group Brand Nubian, Lord Jamar, and we will take it from there and verberate and continue this podcast subject, which is Amerindian Enslavement and the Plantation Negro, a lost people and their stolen identity. We will continue after this audio cast.
The world is a place for black people. But meaning that black people didn't choose to be in America. They were forced.
Well, we
didn't
choose to be under this system. First of all, there's a lot of evidence that is coming up recently that's showing that we was already here. That we are the fucking Indians. We are the fucking Indians that they found here And in order to make us not rebel crazily, they made us think we was from somewhere else. Now,
What?
listen. You get here, right? Columbus and them motherfuckers get here.
Mm-hmm.
They got guns and all of that, so they fucking subdue, the older generation or whatever. But the older generation is always going to fight and always going to hold on to their shit. So you go to the next generation now, who doesn't know. We were talking about the disconnect before. Just in one generation from you know what I mean? One generation, motherfuckers don't know who Big Daddy Kane is. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So imagine you got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations. Even in just that one generation, if I separate you from your parent and tell you, you're really from Africa. We stole you from Africa and brought you across the sea and brought you to this land that is not yours. See, your land is actually somewhere over there. There's a big percentage. This is why black people and American Indians have always had a certain camaraderie.
You're saying that there were Native Americans that look like they're Africans.
Yes.
Already in this country.
Yes. And there's statues and all kind of shit to prove it.
But
even in South America, like, look at some of the statues, the Olmecs, all that type of shit. These motherfuckers have African features, not Hispanic, not Indian, African. So you got to understand, we've been here for so long. I'm saying original people have been here for so long that there's nothing we haven't done and nowhere we haven't been. Okay? There is no fucking place that white people have discovered on this planet. Anywhere that white people have gone, anywhere, they will find the original man was already there.
Well, I'm just saying that Africans look different, look a certain type of way because of the climate of where they live.
First of all, let's not go into just no. It's not just about climate.
Clearly, when there is a lot of sun and a lot of heat, you need more melanin in your skin to even survive in that particular region. This is why you have darker skinned people closer to the equator, and you have lighter skinned people farther away from the equator. No, you don't agree with this? This is all bullshit? It's all bullshit. Okay.
Because if you really do your research, there were black people in Europe for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years before there's any record of any white people coming there, and they were still black. What's the geographical weather shit there? Like, white people are an anomaly. Like, they just came onto the scene.
There you go right there. That's Lord Jamar of Brand Nubian dropping conscious knowledge, dropping conscious truth. The brother is woke. He sees the game that's been played. It's us who don't see. It's many of us. I ain't gonna say I'm not included in us. I see what's been played. He's one of the brothers. He see the game that's being played. It's we who don't see the game that's being played. And if anybody's wondering, this brother's always talking about Native American and black people being Indian, just like them conscious African brothers, always talking about. Look, we are a people that are the only people on the face of this planet that have lost our identity. And as a result, you have many slave-minded Negroes who just go with the flow. Because they've made money their pussy. They've made money their dick. They've made money their God. They've made money their everything. And every time you earn $1, every time you earn a coin, every time, it doesn't matter. There's a slave master sitting right there on that bill to remind you, I run this thing. But was it always that way? That's the question. Was it always that way? And if some people might say, some slave-minded house Negroes out say, well, it doesn't matter. We're in a different time and whoop, and it doesn't matter what it would used to be like. Yes, it does matter, because culture and heritage gives you a sense of identity. It gives you a strength. It also tells you what your people's original principles, traditions, customs were. It also tells you the locality of your people. It also tells you the language of your people. This is the reason why you got so much strength in other cultures that black people just don't share it. At least the Negroes in North America don't share. I mean, let's prime example, the Cubans of Cuba, the Dominicans of the Dominican Republic, the Puerto Ricans of Puerto Rico. These are Negroes as well. These are Negroes. These are black folks who are also children of the indigenous Aboriginal people of those islands. But you know what? They got more unity and more love amongst them. Why? Because of the culture that they've created. Because of the culture that they've created. As a result of their locality and where they were enslaved at. Despite the fact that they're the children of slaves, they created a culture. Now, it might be a culture that was built on Spanish and Latin identity, but they created a culture that brought them together. And they have a sense of unity and love for one another that we in North America just don't even care to have, because we've given ourselves a culture of slave to the white man's green cotton. Remember, people, money is printed on cotton, not tree paper, like some dumb Negroes think. Money is printed on cotton. White man obviously is trying to remind us what our ancestors originally did for them. Pick cotton. Again, most black folks think that it was Africans picking cotton out in those fields. No, that's a lie. So there's three things I think that black people need to question that they do not question because they're too blind, too ignorant, and too in love with surviving in the white man's system to set aside some time to question things in their own lives, question things that they've been taught, question things that they've been told. And let me point out some of these three things. Question one, the African was the first slave and first to work the plantation. A lie. I'm telling you right now, that's a lie. Again, a question you should raise. The African was the first slave and first to work the plantation? That was fed to us from the time we are children and are able to be taught. This lie isn't stated, but it's insinuated. It's insinuated how? Constantly showing slave programs, and they calling those slaves Africans. Whenever they show a slave program, whenever they show roots, whenever they show the roots, the next generation, whenever they show 12 years a slave, they tell you constantly hearing the term African nigger, African. This lie is stated but not insinuated, and in some cases it's stated when they call these people in these programs African, but it's not stated in such a way that they're saying, because they won't say that the plantation started with the Negro. They just won't go into the history of the plantation. That's some research you would have to do on your own. And I've done it. I'm doing it. I'm telling you right now, the plantation did not start with the African. So this lie isn't as much as stated, as much as insinuated and taught to us constantly through the lie that Africans were the only slaves to labor who was working the plantation. When the plantation life began with the indigenous natives, and they were the first to work and cultivate crops for European profit. I got some information. I'm gonna show that. Second question black folks should think about, should question in their own mind: the obscure and scattered, confusing numbers when it comes to how many Africans were actually brought here as slaves. I'm going to say it again, the obscure and scattered and confusing numbers. Why, you got one group say 12 million, another group say 7 million, another group says 500,000 Africans were brought here, and I'm going to tell you right now, all that's a lie. Ain't no million African Negroes were brought here across the Pacific. That's a lie. Okay? Again, the obscure and scattered confusing numbers when it comes to how many Africans were actually brought here as slaves. This confusion is mixed with the constant lie that we're told and retold that most, if not almost all natives died from either disease and war. Basically, they say, you know, they try to give us the picture that before bringing African slaves here, you know, they needed African slaves because they didn't have no slaves to cultivate the plantation. So we needed Africans to cultivate the plantation because all the native Indians died from disease and war. Lie. Biggest lie white men ever told to the black folks. You know, like you heard Lord Jamar of the Brand Nubians. You heard that audio cast I played. Enslaved, though, do you really think? Come on now. And this is what cracks me up about black people not questioning things like walking robotic slaves. They tell us that slavery started in 1619. Lie. Slavery did not start in 1619. That's a lie. We all know that black, white, brown, didn't matter who you were. When them fools came off that ship, when those aristocrats, when those white Europeans came off those ships and stepped on North America, they enslaved the indigenous population to work for them. The little slaves that they did bring, they came as indentured servants. And that doesn't matter if it was black folks or white folks, they came as indentured. And not many of them came because it was expensive to travel across the waters back then. And if you came either as a slave or as a prisoner, from meaning you was in the prisons in Europe and they gave you a choice. You come with us or stay here in these prisons and die in this prison. So, and don't think a whole crowd of fools came because they felt like they were afraid of the waters. Most of them believed that the earth was flat and that you'd drop off. So they didn't have a whole lot of volunteers. If you really think they did, that's a lie. So again, obscure and scattered and confusing numbers when it comes to how many Africans were actually brought here as slaves. The confusion is mixed with the constant lie that we're told and retold. That if not most, almost all natives died from either disease and war, and those who survived signed treaties of peace in exchange to live on reservations, and that's a mixture of lie and truth. Again, the truth is mixed with more lies, though, with a purpose and political agenda. Why is it that there is a number for how many slaves came in 1619 and 1626? Well, in 1619, they claim in Jamestown, Virginia, 20 Africans got off the ship. That shouldn't astonish them. That should astonish. It actually should. It should shock a bunch of house Negroes out there. 20. No, more than that came. Go read it yourself and slap yourself twice. Okay? 20 Negroes got off that ship who supposedly came from Africa. And in 1626, only 11 got off the ship. Come on now. From 1619 to 1626, you can count how many came. 11 and 20. What is that? Is it 31 Negroes? So who was running the plantation? Again, who was running the plantation during this period in time? That's what I want to know. You feel me? Who was running the plantation in 1619? Who was running the plantation in 1626? Huh? Because it was not enough Negroes to run plantations in South and North Carolina. There was not enough enough Negroes for them to be 20 Negroes in 1619 and then another 11 Negroes in 1626 that got off the ship in Jamestown, Virginia. That was not enough Negroes to pass around to all the plantations that was around during that time. While the white man was cultivating tobacco, sugar, and cotton to send to Europe. Questions, black folks, we need to raise. Think. Now you might say, well, they brought more Africans and later on. Yeah, right. Sure, believe that if you want to. They claim that because for some reason after that the numbers get real scanty. All of a sudden, they didn't keep good logs. They didn't keep logs of the bodies in. Well, why not? It was legal by 1626. African slavery was legal. It was legal here in North America to bring Negroes over here. Now all of a sudden the number jumps from 12 million to 7 million to 10 million to, and half a million. Got educated white folks and educated house niggas can't make their mind up. But you know what? As the years have gone on, you got more and more educated black people coming to a conscious agreement on what they say how many Africans came here. And I'm going to tell you that in a little bit. The third thing that black folks need to question and think about that they don't even think about and question: the slave ships who supposedly transported hundreds of Africans to America through a chaotic transatlantic ocean waters. You can look on Google and Google the video of the Atlantic Ocean. The most rough, the most chaotic oceans as far as oceans that's been explored would rip apart a wooden ship. Another thing black folks don't question. Because 16th and 17th wooden ships, which they were no slave ships at that time. They never built slave ships. They bought Africans over in cargo ships, and cargo ships were created and made to transport commodity. What type of commodity? Well, think about the type of commodity they were transporting back then, because they didn't have refrigeration on wooden ships. So what you think they were transporting back then? Dry goods, flour, wheat, things of that nature, cotton, sugar. That's what tobacco, dry goods. Very little animals, not that many animals, but mostly dry goods, and gold and things of that nature. So basically the cargo ships were not built to transport human people. Well, not hundreds of human people. Of course, just enough to work the ships. But it was not built to transport human bodies. So like I said, the third thing, we don't question like we should, but black conscious people, think about it. I'm talking to my African conscious people. Slave ships transported hundreds of Africans to America through chaotic transatlantic ocean waters. A trip that would have taken at least 3 months during the period of time of only wooden ships that was used with sails. 3 months on the waters. You're going to have 300 niggas on a ship. How you going to feed them for 3 months? 3 months on the waters. No fucking land for 3 months. For almost 3 months, no land. All you see is ocean. What you gonna feed them? What water? You can't give them seawater. That'll kill them. So what are you gonna give them for water? If you want to say, they fish, then gave them fish. So where's the water at? For 3 months. You got 300 niggas on a ship. Where is enough? Where you gonna put the water? And I would challenge anybody to go pull up the schematics. I'm gonna say it again. Type in the Google search engine 16th, 17th century schematics of a cargo ship, and you will see that's an impossibility. They didn't transport no hundreds of Negroes on wooden ships. It never happened. That's another lie we've been told. And we don't raise the question like we should be raising it. We don't raise the question. There were no European slave ships ever made. Number one, on large, and none. There was a large-scale transportation that never happened. So how was Africans transported to the colonies? They used cargo ships. And I would challenge anybody, go look up cargo, go check it out. Look up cargo ships and you'll see for yourself. Okay? Marcus knows I got hey, nephew, I see you there in the conference room. You got anything you want to say to what I'm talking about? Or you just want to listen as I go further? Okay. I got some more information I want to share. Points that I was making. There were 3 questions that I wanted to raise to my conscious community that I believe black folks should think about. Like I said, the second factor is how was these Africans going to survive for 3.5 months on chaotic Atlantic waters? That's to the third question. There's a 2-part thing of that. How were they going to survive? Most people don't question that. 3 months. 2.5 to 3 months on translated slave waters. Where was the water and food going to come from if you just have 150 Negroes on the ship? Let's cut that 300 in half to 150. You got 150 Negroes enslaved in the bottom of the belly of a ship. You got 20, 30, I'm estimating 20, 30 crew members on top that's running the ship. You got to remember, they had to have at least 20 or 30 crew members, to make sure those Negroes stay tied down there in the belly of that ship so they won't overtake the ship. But where's the food and the water going to come from for 3 months, for 2.5 months? Raise the question, people think. So, on that note, let me also talk about the fact, again, the plantation began with Native Americans. I got right here, I want to share with the conscious community, a timeline of slavery in America starting in 1501. Okay? In 1501, African slaves in the New World by Spanish settlers. You can go get this. This is on timeline pdf.com. This article right here that I am reading comes from. Let me read it. You can go pull this up yourself. It's called SharonDraper.com timeline PDF. You can go check this out yourself. Okay, so let me read this right quick. A timeline that goes from 1501 all the way to the 1600s. Okay, African slaves in the New World. Now, mind you, they keep calling black folks Africans. They keep calling our Aboriginal native people Africans. Now, you might wonder why did they do that? Because you got to realize the Spanish people who coined the term Negro, they called the indigenous people of all the islands that they conquered, from the Caribbeans to the Cuban islands, didn't matter. The Spanish who conquered those, even, you gotta realize, even Christopher Columbus, his explorations were funded by the Spanish crown. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand financed his exploration. So his crew was full of Spaniards. His crew was full of Spaniards. And so when they came in contact with the indigenous people, they called them Negro, black, which means black in Spanish. So that's how the term Negro was coined. Now, it was the English who took over around 1586, 1587 to 1588, when the Spanish handed most of the colonies that they had taken over, they handed it over to the English, who coined the term, just calling them all Africans. Why? Because Europe, prior to Europe coming over here to the Americas, Europe had invested in slavery from the African continent. That's where Europe was getting their slaves from prior to coming over here. They were getting their slaves from the African continent. But once they came over here, they saw all these millions of Native Americans, these indigenous black-looking Native Americans that were dark-skinned, and they realized that the Spanish called them Negroes, or Negros, which mean black in Spanish, because of how dark these natives were, because they looked at no different than the Indians in India. They looked at no difference than the Africans in Africa or Ethiopia. So they just say, you know what, let's call them all Africans. But they didn't speak the same language. Africans and Native Americans did not speak the same language, did not have the same culture. So in 1501, according to this timeline right here, it says African slaves in the New World by Spanish settlers bring slaves from Africa to Santo Domingo. If you're going down, if you're going down to 1522 slave revolt, 1562 Britain joined slave trade. John Hawkins, the first Briton to take slave trade, makes a huge profit hauling human cargo from Africa to Hispaniola. Again, like I said, they constantly talking about they was bringing Africans to these islands, but I want you to know what they were doing in a lot of these cases when they would, all the little Caribbean islands, all those little small islands, the Virgin Islands, the Canary Islands, they were basically shifting the natives around. They would take natives from one island, put them on another island, take natives from another island, put them on another, keeping them disconnected from their homeland, keeping them disconnected from their people. And that's because the Spanish, as well as in general the European, understood that those islanders did not travel very far from their islands. So they saw this as a means of keeping them disconnected from one another, at the same time still getting slave labor like they wanted. So on that note, speaking to the slave ship propaganda, I have an audio cast I want to play. And this audio cast that I want to play is by a sister who is a black Native American. And her name is Silver Wolf. And she is, she teaches black Native American heritage. She raises black people's consciousness, and by teaching them the truth of history and basically dissecting those lies and bringing out the truth so that we can see history for the way it really is and really was. And so I want to play this because she talks about the slave ship propaganda, and I want to point this out, and I want to share this. And so let me play this, and we will be back to vertebrate.
When you're learning, you can't have your emotions in the learning process, because emotions will stop learning. So as you learn, as you're watching these things, try to keep, if you start getting some emotions, try to put them in check, okay? Because again, that was the reason for developing those things, to develop those emotions in us. So that we would feel a certain way when we see that African slave trade, that ship, okay, which was really totally propaganda. That picture is total propaganda. But people don't realize that was propaganda. That picture is not a real picture, all right? It does not depict how the people were brought over here. It was a propaganda piece to raise your emotions so that you would get emotional, and then when you raise your emotions, your decisions that you make are not the best decisions.
Propaganda is information, ideas, or rumors deliberately spread widely to help or harm a person, group, movement, etc. A word that had just been introduced into the English vocabulary in the early 18th century, but by the end of the century, abolitionists were using this tactic widely as it provided results. Abolitionist views were becoming more widespread, and abolitionist subcultures began to emerge. One such group was the Society for Effecting the Abolition of the Slave Trade, a British abolitionist group formed in May of 1787 in London, England. The society worked to educate the public about the abuses of the slave trade by writing and publishing anti-slavery books and pamphlets and creating abolitionist prints and posters. Their most infamous print is the image of the Brooks, an 18th century British slave ship. The Plymouth chapter of the Society for Effecting the Abolition of the Slave Trade acquired detailed measurements of the Brooks, including deck plans, cross-sections, and side views. The abolitionists inserted images of prone black people to demonstrate the possibility of how they could be situated. It was a hypothetical illustration, an image that requires one to think what life is like when people are stored this way. It was an image that could carry its message into the minds of those who did not read the society's literature. Images had rarely been used as a propaganda tool in this way before. This image became one of the first political posters. This propaganda was so effective that it has lasted for centuries. It has sparked our imaginations to create images like this. It has also allowed our psyches to be so empathetic to African slavery that it clouds the fact that only 5% of the African slave trade actually took place on United States soil.
Whoa. Did you hear that last part? She said only 5%. Now, I've also heard less than 5%. 5% of the African population was brought to the Americas. You feel me? Now, I said I was going to talk about the Spanish people, because the Spanish explorers were the first ones to touch shores of North America. But let me connect to that audio cast again, too. I want to verbatim on the audio cast. She was talking about the slave ships being propaganda. In other words, they did not bring no hundreds of thousands and millions of slaves on slave ships to North America. It just did not happen. And I'm going to tell you, and to give you a number, because there's been a new number due to research on this subject matter that's came up. And if you go to a site, you can go look it up yourself, slavevoyage.org. I believe that's .org. Let me make sure that's .org so I can give everybody the correct address. Yeah, .org. Slavevoyages.org. You can go see for yourself. They say, according to their research, and this is done by a number of universities, that less than 300,000 Africans were brought here. From that's counting all the way from 1619 all the way till today. And I'm saying it right now because looking at the numbers, they claim in 1501 and 1525, no Africans were brought to North America. In 1526 and 1550, there were no Africans in America. I'm looking at this number from 1501 all the way down to 1601 to 1625. 0 Africans were brought to North America. I would encourage anybody to go check out this website, which is called Voyages.org. Excuse me, Slave Voyages. Slavevoyages.org. And this is a statistical website, and they don't just have North America on here. They got Spain, Portugal, Great Britain, the Netherlands, France, Denmark. These are the major the major countries that were involved with the slave trade. Mind you, I want you to know there was more than just them. The Germans were involved. There was a whole bunch of people. But the people who were the major ballers, the major political ballers that was making money off of the slave trade was Spain, Portugal, Great Britain, the Netherlands, France, and Denmark. Okay? And so I'm looking at it right now. Okay? And there were African slaves brought to Spain in 1501 to 1525. They were African slaves, and they give a number. Almost 6,320 from 1501 to 1525. There's a number of 6,363. In 1526 to 1550, I'm just talking Spain right now. Spain, and I believe that's just Spain. All right, 25,375 Africans. Okay, we're going all down, and the number goes all the way down. They were taking a lot of slaves from Africa, Spain. I mean, if we go to Portugal, my goodness, in 1501 to 1525, 7,000. 1526 to 1550, 25,000, just like Spain. The list goes on from 1551 to 1575. Portugal brought to Brazil 31,089 Africans. Spain brought 28, and the number goes on. I mean, even in Great Britain, in Great Britain in 1626 to 1650, 33,695 Africans. But look, when you go over here to the U.S., North America, in 1601 to 1625, 0 African Negroes were brought here. Where do these people, my conscious brothers and sisters want to believe so badly that America was just filtered with African slaves. They hold on to that lie. In 1576 to 1600, 0 Africans were brought here. in 1551 to 1570. 0. Now, when were the first Africans were brought here? Well, I'm looking at right now from 1626 to 1626 to 1650. There was an approximate number of 824 Africans that were brought here. From 1626 to 1650, no more, less than 1,000. 824 Africans were brought here. That following year, from 1651 to 1675, 0. No Negroes from Africa were brought here. Then if you go down to 1676 to the 1700s, about another 3,327 Africans were brought here. Now, the question is this, my people. From 1501 all the way down to 1525, the white devil was over here on the shores of North America. And if you want to talk about specifics, the Spanish were here, colonized North America from 1525, because in 1501 they came here. There was a Spanish explorer who explored here. But if you want to get down to detail, let me read something else to you right quick. Okay, let's talk about one of the famed Spanish explorers, Hernando de Soto, okay, who explored from 1539 to 1543, explored the southeast region of North America for Spain, searching for gold. A suitable, and I'm reading this so I can tell you where I'm reading this from. You can go check it out yourself. National Humanities Center. The National Humanities Center. You can go check it out. Go check it out yourself. Okay? Hernando de Soto explored the southeast region of North America for Spain, searching for gold, a suitable site for a colony, meaning he's basically looking to go set up new land for the Spanish crown, and an overland route from Mexico to the Atlantic. From 1539 to 1543, starting from Florida with over 600 men, 200 horses, 300 pigs, and a pack of attack dogs. The expedition meandered for thousands of miles through the interior. At every point, the Spanish attacked Indian villages, pillaged, murdered, and commandeered food, supplies, and captives. That means they took slaves and captives. They discovered the Mississippi River, a major challenge to cross, and continued west to Texas. Okay, so this is talking about the Spanish explorer. I'm just talking about from 1539 to 1543. These fools were over here. Yeah? Taken from the Indians. They said that they went through, attacking Indian villages, pillaging, murdering, and commandeering, taking their food supplies, and taking captives. I read from some information where De Soto had a plantation where he had over 100 natives to cultivate his plantation. He cultivated tobacco and sugar. This is De Soto. Okay? We got to wake up, people. We got to wake up. If we call ourselves a people of truth, especially black folks who believe in African culture and because African culture is full of integrity, then you got to be truthful and honest about history. Stop lying to yourself. So, before let me see if any of my brothers y'all got anything y'all want to say? Y'all sitting here listening to me. Anything you guys want to say about what I just read so far?
Well, I think it's very interesting. It just never ceases to amaze me how this man has pulled the wool over our eyes and continuing on with the lie that he has perpetrated against us.
Yeah, the way things look, not just look, I'm talking about based on the fact of, the research I've done, the way it looks so far, they need to be rewriting history and stop lying to the kids, stop lying to the people about history, because History Channel, Discovery Channel, rest of them, they continue to perpetrate a lie when it comes to Native American history in this country.
Well, they're not going to rewrite the history until people understand what the true history is, and set for people in government to bring about this change. Plus, they need to have the people who are knowledgeable write this history.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. Let me also bring to the attention of my conscious family out there, those who are listening to the show. If you hear any static, any feedback, this person has been working on, even though I tighten up my security, be working on trying to ping my shows. He tries to find other means, but I ain't worried. I'll be getting a new computer real soon with some more tighter security, some new information, new security features and stuff. So I will continue to drop nothing but the raw and uncut, as always, here on the Black Village Community Podcast. But let me also share some more information that I found very interesting. Let me first just talk about, a couple of words that I think people ignore or they just don't make themselves conscious to in the process and when it comes to historical information, like the word chattel. Now, we all know that when it comes to chattel slavery, that chattel slavery was the most severe form of slavery. But let's go a little bit deeper into the word and the definition of the word chattel. And you can go see this yourself. You can go look up, research the word yourself. But I'm telling you what I've researched. Chattel slaves is an enslaved person who is owned forever and whose children and children's children are automatically enslaved. Chattel slaves are individuals treated as complete property to be bought, sold like cattle. Chattel slavery was supported and made legal by European governments and monarchs. Now, what I found interesting is this. Again, under the system of chattel slavery, not only were you a slave, but your children and your children's children are automatically enslaved. Now, I'm pretty sure, I knew that. But you got to bear in mind, okay? We, black folks here in North America, who are the descendants of those slaves, even though we're physically free, supposedly, are we really free? Has the bonds of chattel slavery really ended for us as the descendants of slaves? Now, mind you, bear in mind, the first people who the process of chattel slavery was tested on and perfected on were black Native Americans. So, to substantiate that, let me read a little more information. Now, this is some history information I'm going to read right now. Slavery and Native Americans in British North America and the United States. That's where this information is taken from a history book titled Slavery and Native Americans in British North America and the United States from 1600 to 1865. Let me read it, and I quote. Once Europeans arrived as colonists in North America, the nature of Indian slavery changed abruptly and dramatically. Let me read that again. Once Europeans arrived as colonists in North America, the nature of Indian slavery changed abruptly and dramatically. Now, mind you, this historical information is not talking about the Spanish. The Spanish had North America from the early 1500s all the way up to about 1586 to 1587 when they handed it over to the English Europeans. You feel me? Mind you, the Spanish are Europe, the Spaniards are Europeans too. They're the white man's Spanish brothers. So when the white man decided to take over from the Spanish, slavery changed. The question is, what type of change went on during that time? That's the question. What? Well, the Spanish enslaved them. I just read to you where Hernando de Soto was pillaging them, murdering them, taking their food, and taking them as captives. What would you think he was doing with them as captives? He used them as slaves to build his colony. I read to you where he said he colonized. He was looking for gold and looking to build a colony in North America. That was under Hernando de Soto. So now we got the white English who are here to this day still running things, the white devil, European English devil, who colonized in the 1600s. And as you heard me read, it says, once Europeans arrived as colonists in North America, the nature of Indian slavery changed abruptly and dramatically. Indians found that British settlers, especially those in the southern colonies, eagerly purchased or captured Indians to use as forced labor and cultivated tobacco, rice, and indigo, and more and more. I'm reading this from a history book titled Slavery and Native Americans in British North America and the United States. Something you ain't gonna find in your average history book. But you can go read it and you can go check it out yourself. I would encourage you to do so. Let me read a little bit more. Indians begin, I'm gonna jump down to something a little bit more, I think, more attention grabbing. How about this paragraph right here? Unscrupulous traders, frontiers, settlers, and government officials encouraged Indians to make war on other tribes to reap the profit from the slaves captured as such raids, or to weaken the warring tribes. Listen to that. That's why I call him the white devil. That's some devilish stuff right there. Unscrupulous traders, frontier settlers, and government officials encouraged Indians to make war on other tribes to reap the profit from the slaves captured in such raids, or to weaken warring tribes. It is not known how many Indians were enslaved by Europeans, but they certainly number in the tens of thousands. It is estimated that Carolina merchants operated out of Charlestown shipped an estimate of 30,000 to 50,000 Indian captives between 1670 and 1715. Whoa. In a profitable slave trade with the Caribbean, Spanish, and Hispaniola and northern colonies because of the higher transportation costs of bringing blacks from Africa. They didn't want no Africans. It cost too much. There you go right there again. You just heard me read it. It says because of the higher transportation costs of bringing blacks from Africa. Whites in the northern colonies sometimes preferred Indian slaves, especially Indian women and children, to blacks. Carolina actually exported as many, even more Indian slaves than it transported even Africans prior to 1720. The usual exchange rate of captive Indians for enslaved Africans was 2 or 3 Indians to 1 African. Bayou, my point again. We are Native American. Black folks, we are Native American. That means most of those people on that plantation. Let me read this one more time. This paragraph right here, to me, it just snaps. It's just a snap paragraph. Let me snap. It says the Carolina actually exported as many or even more Indian slaves than it imported enslaved Africans prior to 1720. The usual exchange rate of captive Indians for enslaved Africans was 2 or 3 Indians to 1 African. They didn't want no Africans. They were too expensive. They was too expensive. And can you imagine if it's too expensive, it's too costly if you have to kill the nigga? When you're on a continent where hundreds of thousands and millions of already native people who are already indigenous to the country, already know the land, already know how to cultivate, and already know how to grow crops already. And Native Americans were known for their corn, tobacco, crop growing. So there you go again, people. Raw and uncut conscious truth, historical truth, of who we are. The question is, why don't we embrace this? Huh? Why don't we embrace this? I'm going to tell you why we don't embrace it. The Willie Lynch syndrome, that you got a whole bunch of Negroes out there trying to say, well, that never happened. Well, we got the residual effects of it is on us right now today. If you go right down here and you go download the Willie Lynch syndrome, the entire text, and just read the part where it says, let's make a slave, and you'll see. As always, right here, I got it right here in front of me right now. Let me read a little bit right here. It says, I'm gonna just jump down to some parts that I think are the most important parts of the paragraph instead of reading the entire thing because I'm crunched for time. Pay particular attention to the female savage. Now, I want you to know that word savage was really used here in North America towards Indian people. I'm going to say it again. The word savage was a constant norm in the white devil's mouth to call our native ancestors. That was not something that you normally heard called to an African. You know, so don't get it twisted. I know they call it the African all types of derogatory things, but the word savage was a norm to call Indian people. Pay particular attention to the female savage and her offspring for her orderly future planning. Then more recently, we stated that by reversing the position of the male and female savage, we had created an orbiting cycle that turns in on itself axis forever, unless phenomenon occurred and the shifting the position of the male and the female savage. Now let me go down some more. Let me read another part of this, the important part of the paragraph, okay? Our experts warned us about the possibility of the phenomenon occurring, for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time, if it can touch some substantial original historical basis. And they advise us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomenon or illusions, so that each illusion will twirl in on its own orbit, something akin to floating balls in a vacuum. This creation of a multiplicity of phenomenon or illusion entails the principles of crossbreeding nigger and the horse, as we stated. Now, again, my point of bringing this point out right here is that you see that they're talking about taking away our history. They stripped those natives on that plantation, those aboriginal natives, those dark-skinned, copper-colored natives, the first ones to cultivate a plantation, the first ones to make profit for Europeans. And I say Europeans, I'm talking about the Spanish and then the English Europeans. They were talking about, now remember, in what I read to you, it says that when the English took over, when the British took over from the Spanish, an abrupt change happened. This was that change. This was that change. They already knew when they made an exchange with the Spanish that what the Spanish was dealing with. So these English had already devised a plan, and this was a part of that plan. Because if you listen to what it says they advise that the best way to deal with the phenomena is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomenon or illusion. What is that illusion today? Black folks thinking they from Africa. Black folks believing that they are from that our ancestors are from Africa, not here in North America. That's the illusion that was done to us. White man ain't got no problem with you calling yourself an African. Call yourself a Native American. He'll call you a liar in a minute. But his blue-eyed, blonde-haired ass will turn around and tell you in a minute, oh, I got Cherokee in me and my grandmama was half Choctaw. White devil. Raw and uncut just like that here from the Black Village Community Podcast. Anybody got anything else they want to contribute to what I just read and what I just said? Okay. If you got nothing to contribute to what I just said, then I guess I will continue. And so, again, I would also encourage my people to check out my own... Go ahead.
I like to say, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, you know, a lot of the subjects you're bringing up, if you're a person such as myself, who actually, you know, read books about the things you're talking about, and do the research on the people that are reading these books, you see that a lot of this stuff does make sense if you put the pieces together.
And that's true. That's true. I mean, what the white man has done is that he's omitted a lot of history. He's destroyed a lot of history. And then he's mixed up everything. And that's a part of what I just read right here from the Willie Lynch syndrome, when he talks about creating an illusion and creating a multiplicity of illusions. This is, and then he talks about, so it's like a vacuum, where it twirls in on itself on its own axis. I thought that was very important to bring out. I want to comment a little bit more on that because I studying this and researching this caused me to come to some conclusions on some things. When you read the Willie Lynch the Willie Lynch papers, okay, let me drop down to this part right here. I'm going to read a little bit. It says the creation of multiplicity of phenomenon or illusions entails the principles of crossbreeding the nigger and the horse, as we stated above, the purpose of which is to create a diversified division of labor, the result of which is to severance of the points of beginning of its original beginnings. Listen to that. The results of which is severance of the points of original beginnings for each spherical illusion. Since we feel that the subject matter may get more complicated as we proceed in laying down our economic plan concerning the purpose, reason, and effect of crossbreeding horse and niggers, we shall lay down the following definitional terms for future generations. 1. Orbiting cycle, meaning things that turn in given patterns. 2. Axis, means upon which or around which a body turns. 3. Phenomenon, meaning something beyond ordinary conception and inspires awe and wonder. 4. Multiplicity, meaning a great number. And 5. The sphere, meaning a globe. Now then the 5. Now it goes to 7, I believe. Let me go. Yeah, it goes to 7. But I want to point out those 5 things that they thought that was important for their future generations to understand, to keep going. So when I was researching, I was like, what did they mean by this? Let me break you down what I got out of this as I researched it. Number 1, the orbiting cycle is the continued lie and the retelling and the recycling of the same lie that black people are from Africa. And telling this lie to all black people here and abroad where all black people reside. The orbiting cycle process also means a continued assimilated mindset that was created by the chattel process that broke the native female, that broke the native black female. So that's what I got of that. Now, number 2, okay, the axis, meaning the pivotal point from which the lie started and began, to reassure that it continues at any means necessary, even as our planet continues to turn on its axis, so does the created illusion. The axis also represents an ongoing assimilated psychological process that is in continual rotation by its slave victims and all who are a part of that agenda. Okay, that's number 2. Talking about these things, these processes that they have done to our people and are still doing. 3. Okay. The transatlantic slave trade brainwashing lie and the back to Africa return to an African mindset and a lifestyle. That's in reference to the phenomenon. The phenomenon means something beyond an ordinary conception and inspires awe and wonder. To know, to think to yourself that your ancestors and that your original culture is across the Pacific Ocean and you're on the other side, that inspires awe and wonder because you wonder what it's like. I mean, at least when I was a kid, I used to wonder what Africa was like. I wonder what it's like to be in Africa. You feel me? You know, and now, so that's number 3, the transatlantic slave brainwashing lie and the back to Africa and return to African mindset and lifestyle. So even if you don't ever go to Africa, you got black folks over here living Africa in their homes. See, that's that awe, and that's that awe and wonder. 4, the multiplicity, meaning the number of ways of retelling the lie to a degree of making the lie look like a truth. Again, the multiplicity. That's number 4, meaning a number of ways of retelling the lie to a degree of making it look like it's the truth, so that the lie look like it's a truth. To concrete the lie as truth. Again, What lie? The lie that black people's ancestors are from Africa and that they aren't native Indians. This lie is still today accepted and told. And then number 5, the continent, the globe. Number 5, the globe. They said the sphere represents a globe. The continent on the globe was Africa, as they reversed and changed our people's identity through the chattel process. So the globe represents represents a sphere, a circle. And so everything still goes right back around, no matter what, no matter where if you go to school, no matter if you watch television, no matter who you talk to, they're telling us that we are from Africa, that our ancestors were African. They want, as soon as you say you're Native American, no, you're not. You don't look like an Indian. You look like you come from Africa. Come on, man, it's bull crap. And so we need to study this stuff. We need to study. And when you go down to continue, drop down to one more passage I want to read from the Willie Lynch letters. Controlled language. Controlled language. This is in the Willie Lynch letters. Crossbreeding complete. For further severance, that means for separation, for further severance from their original beginning, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the nigger and the new mule and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. Language is a peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of the people. The more a foreigner knows about your language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country to the extent that he knows the body of language, to that extent, the country is vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. For example, you take the slave. If you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then no more a slave. For you can't fool him any longer, and having a fool is the one basic ingredient of incidents to making of the slave system. This isn't the Willie Lynch letters, people. What did they do? They took away the language of our people, our connection to our people here, our connection to our tribes. You feel me? And so we have to wake up. We have to realize who we are. We have to accept the truth and stop lying to ourselves, allowing these churches to lie to us, getting us to have the behavior and mindset of not caring. We care more for the white man's money and his religion than we do than the truth itself. And then we tell ourselves we care about truth. And that's a lie. You don't care about truth if you don't care about your culture, the truth of your culture. You don't care about truth if you realize that where you're getting your religious teachings from separates you and severs you from your culture. Christianity severs you from your culture. Whew, my goodness. I didn't ran out a lot of time here. I'm actually over my time limit, but as always, this is JC, aka Afro Black, here with you at the Black Village Community Podcast, dropping the raw and uncut. Today's podcast topic is, as stated earlier, Amerindian Enslavement and the Plantation Negro, a lost people and their stolen identity. And basically what I'm trying to get everybody to realize and see is that the original plantation worker, the plantation originally was cultivated, worked, and brought profit to the European Empire through the indigenous native people, not Africans. And this is the reason why whenever you hear about African history, it goes no further than 1619, and it shouldn't even go to that. It shouldn't even go there. It should start. Let me see right here. While I was reading, let me see the statistics that is done by Voyages.org. According to their information, African slavery did not start until 1626. Because from 1626 to 1650, according to their research, which Voyages.org is a website put together by a number of researchers from universities. And according to what they say, 824 Africans were brought here between 1626 and 1650. And if you even think about that, 824 Africans in the colonies of the United States, from the South to the southern states to the northern states, No, that's still. So who was running the from before 1626? From 1626 to 1501. To 1525, to 1526 and 1550, to 1551, 1575, 1576, to 1600, to 1601, to 1619, 1620. Who was running the plantations? Well, the European colonies were making money. The Spanish crown, as well as the English crown, were making millions. I'm going to tell you, millions of sugar cultivation and tobacco cultivation, indigo and rice, went to the European colonies from North America from 1501 onward. So who was cultivating? It wasn't white folks. It wasn't a spot. It was indigenous, aboriginal Indians of North America. Our ancestors cultivated that shit. Raw and uncut. Do your research, people. Stop lying to my African conscious brothers. Stop lying. Stop lying to you people. Tell the raw and uncut. So on that note, I got to end my show. I've been talking a whole lot. Anybody got any last words? My nephew, my brother who joined me and support my show. I appreciate these brothers. I appreciate my family who support me. Y'all got any last words to what I was just saying before we head up out of here?
Well, I think that people really need to do their own research, look at this stuff, and see where they're coming from.
I totally agree with you, my brother. Our people need the research. We need to stop being robots, because at this point, we got a whole bunch of robots going on. You feel me? We got a whole bunch of robots going on. Nephew, you got any last words, nephew, before I get up out of here?
The stuff that you do research, just make sure, you research the author or the person that's that wrote the article. Make sure their resources are, good, reliable, credible resources.
Exactly.
And always to make sure you always, when you read different things, try to put the pieces together to see if it makes it for you like it does to me.
I hear you. I totally agree with you. And that's what researching is all about. Let me also say again, I mean no disrespect to my conscious African brothers and sisters out there who are African conscious on that level. I love my African people. I love African culture. I love African food. So don't get it twisted. This is no disrespect to African customs, African history, and African culture. This is all about truth. You feel me? And I was once African conscious, and when I was African conscious, it was all about truth. So that's one thing about the African culture and the Native American culture. It's all about truth, the integrity of the raw and uncut truth. And so there's no disrespect to my people, and I don't want nobody taking it in the wrong way. So I'm just dropping the raw and uncut and telling the raw and uncut from the Native perspective of who we are, what we are, and who our ancestors are. And so you got people out there that are, African conscious brothers that are saying, well, JC, Africans came to North America way before the white man did, and that, there's some truth to that. But that has nothing to do with the fact that the native population that was already here. You feel me? Any Africans that came here were not enough to come here and take over. They got absorbed by the native population, and skin color and is not stationary to Africa. You got black people all over this planet, in many different countries that were already there for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. So skin color is not stationary to one part of the planet, and that's what people need to realize. You feel me? You got the Fijian people of Fiji. The Fijian people of Fiji are not African. The Aborigines of Australia, they're not African. You feel me? So black people are everywhere. Melanated people are all over the planet. At one time, Asian people were melanated, and they still are melanated to a degree. And then if you actually look at the different tribes of Asian people, they become darker and darker. You feel me? So, we have to just embrace truth and stop trying to make truth, bend truth to ourselves. But we need to straighten ourselves up to truth and not bend truth to us. So on that level, let me say this again. I enjoyed myself. I might just conclude this. I mean, I still have more information I have not shared, so I might just continue this to next Sunday, next Delicious Black Sunday, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut to my conscious community. And as always, you can always join me here live. It doesn't cost you a dime, just a bit of your conscious time. You can chime in at 855-445-9340. You can also chime in at 857-232-0155. And don't forget the conference key to get through the conference door, which is 947595. And also check out my website, me and my queen. My queen wasn't here to join me today. She was a very hard-working woman. She was very tired and exhausted. She wanted to be here. She loves to be on the show. She loves to share her voice and her knowledge and her intuition, and we reverberate together very well. I love it. I love it when she's here with me, but she was too tired and too exhausted from working real hard today, and so she took some time off to recoup, and she might just be back next week reverberating with us. You feel me? Giving us her perspective. So on that note, she, that's why she wasn't here to join the show with me today. But as always, I have a online store that sells African products, and the whole point of me having that online store is not just to make a financial benefit, but everything that's purchased from Mystic Roots, our online African store, a portion of the money goes back to the African people, who we buy our products from. A portion of the proceeds go back to Africa to help clean water, help build schools, help the people in our in Africa. So the native people and the African people have a connection. There's a long history, ancient history as well as not ancient history. There's a long history of a connection with native people of North America and African people who came over here and visited, and some who stayed. So, we are one people. So, don't get it twisted, people. I'm just a truth seeker. I can't lie about who I am. My ancestors are, and which makes me who I am, which is, Black Cherokee, Choctaw, and Blackfoot. That's who I am. There's no African in my family, not one from my research. There's no African. I am Indian. I am Native American of North America. And most black folks are, and they don't even know it. So, excuse me. On that note, I will be back. I will be black. And also, let me quote this. You can please check out our online store, which is mysticroots.yourafricanmarket.com. Again, that's Mystic Roots, MYSTIK, Roots, ROOTZ. Again, MYSTIK, ROOTZ, mysticroots.yourafricanmarket.com. And you can buy all your beautiful African attire, cosmetics, which is all natural, and toys and all types of things. So please visit our store, our web store. And now I am working on putting in some native things as well, some native art and some native things to add to our store, and that's going to come hopefully in time. But right now it's just an all African store that I sell African products. But on that note, we gotta go. I gotta go. I'm pressed for time. I've been on here way past my time limit. I will be back. I will be black next Black Delicious Sunday, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut here on the Black Village Community Podcast. And so, as I always say, may the Great Mother bring us together under the wings of her love and her protection as one people. And as I always say, love, peace, and chicken grease. I gotta go. I'm out.
No matter where you go, in every country we in there. Most of us did not come on slave ships, we've been here. Indian just means amalgamated more. The U.S. tried to wipe us out in 3 seminal wars. For each aboriginal, 7 troops died. 90% of Indians were reclassified as Negroes. We fought European foes. Africa's great, but we don't look under our nose. Or now here's the Old Man River, or the Massey Sequel, knock out the Mississippi. We're the Yamasi people and others here like the Washita, the Chocos in Colombia, Darientos in Panama, the Garifunas and more. We're prisoners of war. Our titles, nationalities, and birthrights ignored. We got a huge missing gap in our past and been divided into races some type of caste. Everyone else has a language, where's mine? Cause ours is long gone like your grandpa's hairline.
Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people.